Welcome to the CBP Spring Virtual Conference. Wipfli is proud to be a CBP partner and presenting sponsor. I'm TJ O'Neill, also known as the Thirsty CPA, and help lead our firm's craft brewery team. We offer a full lineup of solutions, including accounting and tax, digital strategies, business advisory, and strategic planning services. Our firm's been working with breweries, wineries, and distilleries for decades. So whether you're a startup or looking to expand, we just might surprise you with a new perspective to transform your business. You can learn more at wipfli.com. Remember, that's Wipfli, W-I-P-F-L-I, not Wipfly. I hope you're enjoying the conference. Cheers.
You did it, everybody. If you're tuning in live, you've nearly made it to the end of day 2 of our 2024 Spring Virtual Conference. If you're listening after the fact, don't worry, you can access all content on our CBP YouTube. Huge thanks to ABS Commercial, Beer Law Center, and Wipfli for helping keep events like this 100% free and accessible to all. Now, who's ready to go swimming? Tip pooling is becoming increasingly more common in tap rooms, and motivating and engaging staff members requires a nuanced approach. In this conversation, we will learn why our panelists chose the tip pool model, challenges they faced, and how it has been a win for their entire team. We're about to explore the strategies they've used to boost staff morale, foster teamwork, and ultimately create more successful taproom experiences for both guests and staff. But first, let's meet our panelists today. And Kim, because you are to the right of me, you get to go first. Thanks for being here.
Hi, everybody. Hope you had a great day. My name is Kim Collins. I'm the owner and head brewer of Guardian Brewing Company. We've been open for 5 years. We just closed last Monday. It's a long story for another article read, but I'm excited to talk about tip pooling. We've had a lot of success with it.
Awesome. Thanks for being here, Kim. And Bobbi, good to see you.
Hello, I'm Bobbi Gabler. I'm with Skydance Brewing out of Oklahoma City. I am the operations managers and HR director. And I'm there all the time.
You wear a lot of hats.
Yes, I joke about how we work 6.5 days a week.
Well, I'm excited to see you face to face in Las Vegas in just a few weeks. That'll be fun too.
Yes.
And next up.
Hi. So I'm Linus de Paoli. I'm from Gatos Brewery in West Michigan. We've been open for almost 3 years. We're going to be making 3 years in July. So you can tell by the name and the accent, I'm not from the U.S., so it will be fun sharing what we do with tip pooling here at Tres Gatos. And we do things here differently just because we're not from here. So,
well, it was kind of unintentional, but all three of you have really unique stories that are probably worth sharing on separate conversations because you're all doing very unique things that, I think help differentiate you. Yeah. But Linus, because I've got you first, I'm going to pick your brain. So why did you decide to go with the tip pooling model?
So, several reasons. First one that I said already, me and my wife who own the business, we're not from the U.S., so we come from different tipping culture. The U.S. American tipping culture is quite unique in that workers in the hospitality industry get most of their money from tips and not from a base wage. So we don't come from this background. So actually, this for me is very strange. So we didn't think that paying our staff a tip minimum wage and relying on customer tips for compensation was a fair thing to do with them. I mean, as a business owner, you have to take financial risks to own a business, and paying your staff fairly is one of those. So that was the biggest one. Second one was to, again, foster a more cooperative work place in a way that everybody helps each other and everybody works together to provide great customer experiences, including the back of the house as well. So we do pool tips for the back of the house in here. So instead of like collecting tips for the kitchen or pay around for the kitchen, we use the tips pool to do that kind of thing.
And you started with that model from day one?
Yes. So we set to do this from day one. was also a way to bring together wages, though, base plus tips from front and back of the house to a closer level, because there have been historically a big disparity on base wage on one side and on total compensation on the other side, that I think brings a lot of stress in the relationship that should be cooperative instead of competitive. So we set to do this from day one. We've been doing it for day one. And I think we've been successful because we've been able to retain a lot of good people here for a long time.
And we're going to dive more into that shortly. But Brad, Gravity Taproom, glad to have you.
Thanks for having me. A little technical glitch, but I think I got it working now. So
tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm the owner-operator of Gravity Taproom here in Orlando, Florida. We're a craft beer bar taproom, but we also have a full scratch kitchen, Neapolitan-style pizzas. We had our grand opening in January, soft opened in November, so we're very new to the game, but been going strong since we've been here. So
I'm going to bet you went with tip pooling from day one as well.
I did, yes, and similar to what Linus was saying is, we did the exact same thing, front of house, back of house, all tip pooled, and basically for exactly the same reasons to, help with that disparity between the pay, kind of stop the front of house, back house feuds, and, just have everyone kind of on the same level.
So now I want to hear from our other panelists. Kim, how about you? Why did this model become something you wanted to do? And was it something you kicked off with when you first opened 5 years ago, or is it something you changed with over time?
So tip pooling is something that we did right from the get-go, and we only did it in the front of the house. I wish I would have dug my heels in a little bit more to do it in the back of the house as well, but we learn and go from there. But so my partner and I are both from like summer camp and camping backgrounds. And so the whole idea of like everybody pitching in and giving your 100%, whether it's, a ton or a little, your 100% is 100%. But we were really inspired by the Mountain Sun, Vine Street Pub, the whole like trio, the Southern Sun, all of them, Longmont Pub in Colorado. It's really cool. So it's super fair and supportive, and you get to meet all the staff. I'm like, they seemed really grateful to work there, and they seemed to have a lot of staff that hung around for a while. So we tried to pay attention whenever we went out, and we felt like it was the best thing for us. It was great.
And thanks for sharing, Bobbi. What's the reasonings behind? I know you all started from the get-go as well.
We did. We started from the get-go, and the biggest thing was that Jake and I have a customer service background, and we're big into teams. And we know that, the person at the beginning of your day, like your receptionist or your admin, is just as important as the person that you're finally getting to meet with at the end of at the back of the office with meeting. So it was like trying to, I just wanted it to be a little bit more of a teamwork environment. And if you feel like you're contributing from the time you open, just like the person that's contributing from the time to close for that customer experience, I think it's best.
So I've got a question for everybody, because everybody here, it was very unintentional that you all went out the gate with the tip pool model, but I think it'll make this conversation even more interesting because that was what you started with. But all the employees in your tap room and in your brewery, they didn't necessarily come from a place with tip pooling. So, how was that when you said, hey, we'd love to have you work here, and this is what we're going to do? How did they respond?
So maybe I can start, especially because we were hiring on July 2021, which was a very easy time for hiring folks. It was very difficult. A lot of people were still on stimulus checks, so a lot of people was hiring, so there was a lack of workers. But the way that we were able to attract those people that came from non-tip pooling environment here was to a lot of transparency. Again, say why we are doing it, how we are doing it, and just laying out as this is how we work here. It's non-negotiable. I'm not going to change. You're free to come work. If you don't like it, I will understand, because we are the outlier. We're not the rule. So again, just open communication, but also showing the math. The way that we do here is not just tip pooling, because also Michigan has some legal aspects to it, is that we can't rely on the tips credit to be able to tip pool. So the base wage for servers has to be above the state minimum wage, not above the tipped minimum wage. So again, transparency, showing them if you were working on a normal place, getting $4 an hour plus tips, this is how much you're going to make. If you're working here at state minimum wage plus a pool tip, this is how much you're going to make. It's just to create a more cooperative workspace.
Yeah, I think that was a big part of it was, as part of the interview process, like you were saying, being very upfront with it, say, here's why. We definitely had a few candidates that right off the bat were like, this isn't for me. That's fine. I get it. That's okay. But, I think the once people got into it and started, being here day to day and doing the tip pool, it was made for a more consistent pay across the board. So yeah, you might not have those crazy days where you're going to make a ton, but you also don't have those days where you walk out not making anything. So it made a more consistent base across. But it was basically that piece of, there was people that have kind of decided this wasn't for them, and that was okay. And it was kind of just like Linus was saying, it was something that we wanted to do, and we realized it wasn't for everybody. So.
Brad, you mean consistency in pay is not something you see in servers and bartenders and wait staff across the hospitality industry?
No, not at all, right?
Yeah.
So Kim, you've started this model 5 years ago. I think tip pooling has become much more common since then. But 5 years ago, what was it like? Hey, we'd love to work. We'd love to have you, but this is how we do it. How did people, react to that?
They all took it really well in the beginning, and through it as well. I think that the fact that we weren't from Michigan and we were coming in and implementing a lot of different types of ways of running a brewery that they might not have seen. Most of them hadn't worked in breweries before, so they just needed to kind of see. I said, just wait and wait it out and just I'll show you how this is going to work. But kind of like Linus is saying, we pay a lot more hourly to make sure that plus the tip is way above a living wage, even above the state minimum. But yeah, we've had some folks that buck back, and we were able to pull files and look at tips over time for them and show them, like Brad said, that consistency is amazing. We're also in a tourist town, so I can only show consistency through seasons in that way, but at least it kind of leveled it out more. And my whole thing was lessen the competition. Kind of if Linus and I were out there, I have a section, he has a section, which we don't have at Guardian. We don't have sections. You might go get a table or, I'd be inside or outside just to make sure that everything's covered. But I'm not I'm not going to get T6 for you because somebody is sitting there, or, it's only one person there, whereas my section's all filled with 8 people tables. I'm going to get, it just took that competition out so that we could be kinder to one another. We could work harder with each other, and it worked. It worked beautifully. We're totally going to do this again.
Yeah, the reason I was able to sell it so easily out here in Oklahoma was just letting people know that I can't guarantee you the best shift. I can't guarantee you the most perfect schedule ever, because I'm going to need those strengths at a different time of the week. And you may think I'm not going to make the money, but everybody says, it just balanced your paycheck out a little bit, and selling it like that was really easy. So they understood. I was like, you want a date night? You want to go to concerts on Saturdays? You want to do this? So it worked out for us great.
So Kim, I'd like to go back to something you said. I'm sure you all have those rock stars who think they can be the most competitive person in the space, who just want to do everything. They want to make the most. How do you handle those people who rebel against the tip pool model?
We nip it in the bud the second it starts. And by doing that, I mean that we go and have a conversation with that person immediately. So that our managers were kind of given language that we all use and reasons why. But if that wasn't good enough, if they couldn't go to their manager, they could come sit down with us and be like, all right, so, what do you need? Why does this bother you? And then let's go look at math. Let's go look at math. Let's look at, like Bobbi said, let's look at your shifts. Are you all working all days? But you're getting pretty good tips, so you should be thanking that night crew, So all of these things, I'm like, I'd say we had 4 or 5, but over time, like, I don't know, it never bothered them enough that they walked. So they were willing to give it a chance to take a look at it, and we could show them over time that it was consistent and it was way better than if they were just tipped in the morning. So if you like pull the tickets in the morning, it'd be like, well, you only would have made, $5 an hour in tips. Like, how you feeling about that? Versus like $25 an hour in tips in the
So you
summer.
were just transparent with the numbers and the data and like,
Yeah.
oh, I get it.
Yep. We also let them see a specific screen on our POS that shows them at least the credit card tips that have come in, because the cash tips sit in a jar. So they count those at the end of the day. So yeah, so a little bit more transparency, math, data, basic graphs. It works.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have any examples of, having that competitive person have challenges with the model?
One thing we did was, especially because we tip pool back of house. So 2 things. One, we asked the staff, like, how they felt about it, kitchen staff especially, and they were able to do a little. They were able to kind of open up a little more where they valued like that morning prep person that came in, because all that prep is done, then nothing has to be done. And for me, I can just make what I need to make and get it going. So we also try to do that similar thing in the front of house where, hey, this morning person stocked the coolers, they cleaned all the glass, they got all the glassware stocked, they did this, they did that. So now when you're here, all you have to do is take care of the customers that come in, because all that's already been done for you, while it was a little slower in the morning time. But the other thing we made them do, and part of the reason we started tip pooling was from a staffing perspective, we kind of open it up. Hey, if you're back of house and you want to come get checked off to be front of house, you can totally do that, and vice versa. So we actually had all the front of house staff go and work a couple shifts in back of house to kind of get that appreciation for what it is they do back there and how hard it may be. So it kind of gave an appreciation for everybody's work that they do and how it all comes together to kind of give the best guest experience. So they definitely did not want to be back there again after they did it a couple times. So they got appreciation.
Everybody has their role. Brad,
right.
Mind me asking, what percent is going to back a house?
So we actually do even split between front and back. So like Linus was saying, we pay minimum wage, so it's not no tip credit, no tip, anything like that. And then they get tip pooling on top of that. So we go even between front and back of house. And a big argument for that was, again, the numbers and the data saying, okay, beer's $6, $7, pizza's going out at $15, $16. So if you want that, that average tab to go up, you need to throw food in, and you appreciate that it's good quality food, because it makes better tips for everyone, not just front or back.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to share the splits if you're including back of house in there?
Yeah. So here, the current split, because it changed a little bit from the beginning, is 20% for the back and the rest for the front. But that is based on how many people are working front and back of the house. And then the back of the house split is half of that for the prep team and half for the line team. Because again, the whole thing is, for me, tip is a reward on experience, and experience is not just the pretty face taking order. Is everything is from the moment you walk in to the moment you walk out. It's cleanliness. So if a guy front of the house staff is on an opening shift, he's cleaning bathrooms, setting up everything, and then you don't have, well, you have probably 2-3 people from opening until people start getting out of the job. So that person should be rewarded for the overall day experience as well. So that's the same thing with prep and line cooks. So that's the reason. But the split was based on the amount of people and base wage. So when I add up base plus tips, it gets to a similar hourly at the end of the day.
And at 3 Gatos, have you ever had anybody rebel against the model?
Yeah, we had one person or a couple of people who kept asking, but it was not usually what you mentioned, the rock star, top achiever. It was usually somebody who felt they should be making more money than they were actually making. So the way to work around that was to actually show. So this is how much I paid. This is how much you make with tips pooling. This is how much you would make without tips pooling and without sharing tips with the back of the house. So if you want to make more money, work more. That was the simple message. So just try to get to the root of the issue. Is the issue of the actual pooling or how much they're taking home, and why are they taking that amount home? Is it because they're not selling enough, or just because they're not picking up enough shifts? So that was the thing. I think the other issue that it's actually bigger with, at least my experience of tip pooling, is when you get somebody who starts to slack and collect money on top of somebody else's back.
Oh,
But-
that's going to be a good one to dive into in just a minute. But I want to hear from Bobbi first on like the overachievers, so to speak.
No, but just
How have you-
just one more message or comment. I mean, what you said about people who are like more competitive and want their section to earn their money, I try to cut them off at the interview. So whenever I get to the point when they start talking about tips and they say my money, my section, my table, and they use the word mine too much, then that's when I know I won't hire them.
I mean, it seems like all of you are creating a great environment that facilitates teamwork. I mean, and just bringing your staff together and closer.
Yeah, transparent. I think I agree with the whole idea of being transparent. So we do go over all our numbers. We talk about average checks. We talk about how all this stuff that they do in the front of the house affects the bottom line overall, right? So there's no secrets. And I don't, we move people around from day to night, so everybody kind of gets that experience. I do have some superstars, but I also remind them I can't give you every weekend just because you're the greatest. So we do a lot of rotation. I like that. I have heard of some breweries where they are doing tip pulling by the week to encourage more of a week group effort, which seemed pretty extreme. And then I do mine just by the day. So.
For everyone else, that's a great point, Bobbi. Are you doing it by the day? You doing it by the week? I'd love for everyone to chime in on that one real quick.
Are you saying, just to clarify, that tipping people out each day or tipping them out the week, or did I miss something?
No, so we don't. All tips go on paychecks, but what I'm saying, the calculation is by the day, so it's hours worked by day by tips. And I have heard of a couple of breweries where they do it by the week, so it encourages more of a teamwork effort. So I was just wondering if everybody else does it by the day or by the week or
day.
So yeah, we do by the day as well.
The day here also.
So now let's dive in. Linus, you brought up a really good point there. We talked about, the superstars, the wannabe superstars, but what about the slackers? It's not something I even considered before this call, but if you have the people who know they're just going to make as much money as the next person by doing less work, how do you all handle that?
By being a manager.
What does that look like at 3 Gatos?
Well, I'm a very positive guy, so I try to believe. I always trust people until they lose my trust. So first and foremost, I assume they just are not used to a cooperative work environment. So I go there and talk to them, say, so-and-so looks like they are ready to order. Please, can you run that food? So just be on top of the person, telling them what to do. But I don't want to be micromanaging people all the time. So if that keeps happening, then I'll call the person and talk again and say, hey, you have to be more cooperative. Work together with your serving buddies, with the team, communicate to each other, hear what the other person is telling you that they need you to do, communicate to that person what you've already done and what they need to do for you. Work as a team. The more you sell, the more everybody makes money. But then if that behavior keeps consistent, it's time to write somebody off and think about changing staff. But that happens with even if we are not tip pooling. I mean, if you have somebody who is lacking and not doing their job, that's the process. You talk, you help, you teach, and then you'll be the angry dad and start.
Well, But on the tip pool model, it's, that person's not pulling their weight for the team. Sometimes it can be seen they're just not pulling the weight for themselves, which is a problem for the business, but not necessarily their coworkers sometimes.
Yeah, and sometimes the coworkers will call them off as well. Like, hey, dude, you're stealing from me just by sitting there on your phone and having me carrying your bag. So move your ass. So sometimes the coworkers will help you be the manager as well.
Well, that's what I was going to say, is actually with the tip pooling model and the culture, that actually almost takes care of itself, because everyone's calling everybody out and saying, hey, we're all sharing tips. You're affecting me, I'm affecting you. So if they see somebody slacking, then most of the time I don't have to say anything. They're already talking to each other, like trying to bring everybody up to all kind of work at the same level, since they're all getting the same tips.
Yeah, we've noticed the same thing, Brad, that I don't work up in the front at all anymore. So I have had a taproom manager and 4 assistants. They had all been around for 3 to 5.5 years. So we started the culture and they kept the train going. And so if anybody was slipping, or, if you're having a bad day, that's different. But if you're just not getting it done, they nip it up front. By the time it gets to me, that person's like, whoa, I got to go back and talk to Kim. Oh no. So yeah, it's usually something's going on. It's, maybe they're confused about something, or somebody was being a little snippy with them and they need to go take a break and make up, it's usually some sort of interpersonal thing going on at work.
Yeah,
and
same.
Bobbi, you wear the HR hat, so I'd love your feedback on this one.
Yes.
So we actually we have responsibilities divvied up between opener and closer. So each open and closing and mid shift actually affects the next person's pocket, so to speak. So I haven't had a lot of pushback. I have had people to slack off a little bit, but like Kim and everybody's saying, man, the whole team will come in and zero in and hey, you didn't clean the bathrooms last night and I had to clean the bathrooms and I only have an hour. You had all night. So it goes hand in hand and back and forth, and it's been really great like that. So I always say peer pressure will work.
Is it some sort of checklist you have, or how do you lay out the responsibilities for each role?
So it's just opening a tour list, a closing tour list. When we first opened the location, I was working in the taproom a lot. And so I was going through the list of what things needed to be done, when was the best time to do them, going by I was opening and closing with those team members. And after some collaboration with the entire taproom team of how to get everybody on board, was to have them look at the list, participate in building that list and make it better. So I have people that would typically close will look at an opening and go, oh man, if you can get that done at opening instead of having me do it, it's different, and vice versa. So it's been great. And they have a checklist. So they just, it's a go by. I go in there every now and then. I'll pull the checklist out and audit them. And on our drawer sheets on closing, they leave little remarks like, hey, wine needs to be dumped, or I don't know how old this is, or whatever. So we try to keep communication open in all different forms.
And I imagine when someone sees that note for the next shift, they're a little more appreciative with this model.
Yeah. Yes. We've actually, we have a close team, and we've had people that, like Kim said, has a bad moment, a bad day. Yeah. And they're running behind, and they'll be like, hey, I'm running behind. I'm just letting you know I'm only going to get this much done, but I'm going to stay a little bit to help you. So it's a great team. It's a great work environment.
For everyone else, how are you putting the responsibilities out there in checklist for people to stay on top of everything?
We have checklists as well.
Yeah.
So they were things we developed with our first crew 5 years ago, and just kind of had them revisit it yearly and laminate it, and they go through a little, so you can literally hand a brand new person this list, and it's super clear, go clean bathrooms. So I've never done that. Okay, learn how to clean bathrooms, all that stuff. So it's great. So they kind of check each other, and then those lists get turned in with the money and all the stuff at the end of the night, and so you can just see it.
Yeah, we have the same checklist. And I will say, though, one thing we did do with the tip pooling was revisit who does what. And like I mentioned before with the openers and closers, is that we tend to make the closing checklists as light as possible to balance it off with okay, the closers might be busier helping customers, and they may have brought in a bulk of the the revenue and the tips that day. So really, okay, for the closing checklist, let's just get the things that have to get done that night, and then the openers will come in and be able to kind of pull a little more than I think what a traditional opening and closing checklist would be, to make up for some of that where it might be a little slower, but they're building value by doing these other things that need to get done either way. So that way, and it was a balancing of shifting a few things around to where the staff felt that it was pretty evenly balanced and fair. So there was no, oh, I'm closing and I'm working way harder than you are and you're getting all the tips. And they kind of started appreciating more, okay, yeah, I'm busier here, but you're busier doing other things that helped me that night. So
Yeah.
Yeah, we have checklists as well that have been evolving since we opened. We did some changes about a month ago, moving the mopping of the whole area to the closing shift. It was done by the opening, just because before the closer only had to sweep the floor, but that wasn't being done. So just adding chores to the closer to make sure they stay on top of things. If things go well, then we'll rebalance everything. It was just it doesn't have to be fixed in time, at least for us. I mean, we pretty open and talk to the staff all the time, so we can adjust and change.
So at first thinking about it, I would imagine that most people would prefer the busier shifts, but because of the tip pool model, have you seen that there's some people who enjoy those slower mornings where they're doing more behind the scenes tasks versus, the high paced Fridays or Saturdays? Both Kim and Bobbi, you both nodding your heads really good right now. Bobbi, what do you have to say? Then Kim, you're next.
Yeah, some of my staff, or a lot of my staff, have families, right? And so, or they're married, and so they, like I said, the superstars appreciate getting a Friday night off versus having to work a Friday night or something like that. So it's been great, though. I haven't seen a lot of problems with that.
And Kim, how about you?
Yeah, definitely seen it. Like, some people love to have that one-on-one at the bar where you can just, like, you got 5 people in at, maybe there's a little rush for lunch, but then there's like a big lull. And then before the afternoon kicks up, I'm like, they love that more like hang out and talk a little bit time, that, slower pace of time. They love organizing things and cleaning things and making batched margaritas, stuff like that. Like they feel a lot of pride in that prep. So they're great in the morning.
Yeah, I think, there are people who prefer that because they can engage with customers more. It's more like a slower pace, but the only thing is use it wisely. Don't use it as a reward for the top performers, just not across the board. Otherwise, again, people take advantage of the system and you're overloading your good workers. So.
Mm-hmm.
And Linus, you teed me up really good right there. I love talking about motivating staff. I've read books on it, just incentives, and trying to understand what people need to just work harder, be better, buy in more. I'm fascinated by that. So I talk a lot about, individualized reports, rewards, give a reward for whoever sells the most to-go beer, whoever has the highest tip percent, whoever has the highest, average tab. But that's not what we're talking about today. So I'd love to hear how, with the tip pool model, you're finding strategies to motivate your team. Feel free to throw out any data you're using, what metrics you like, or just strategies that are really working to get everyone to stay exceptionally motivated.
So actually, based on your advice, I started. One of the things that I implemented here is a highest percentage tip price in a given month for the team that worked that day. So not just for an individual, for the whole team that worked that day. Highest percentage tip. I have sales goals set for the business per weekday. So that's going to be another objective, that if they meet my sales targets for a given weekday, that weekday team gets a reward. So everything is done on the day. The thing that is kind of difficult, at least for us to implement, the way we implement like individual rewards, like you said. So highest average ticket and highest individual tip and stuff like that is because the way we work on a cooperative workspace is not your table. Everybody takes care of everybody. So it's hard to say this check was from this server. So it's better to reward the whole team for one day and just find metrics that work for your business.
I love it. And you're right. A lot of those individualized metrics can be transferred over to a team.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Everyone else, what are your favorite ways to motivate your team and get them excited?
We start with bi-monthly staff meetings, bi-monthly, every 2 weeks. That sounds right? Yeah. So like giving people the time to talk about what they want to see happen too. And then, it's like who can sell the most growlers today, or who sold the most kegs last month, or the thing for job fairs. Like if you went to a job fair and somebody filled out an application and we hired them and they stayed for a month, you get, X dollars. So just little fun things to keep it interesting.
So Kim, it sounds like you are giving some individualized rewards. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have in the case of hiring. Yeah, because tough times. I'm like, it's been crazy out here.
When it comes to, the highest average checks or one of the metrics you mentioned, is that based on a team performance or is that based on the individual?
I don't know that I mentioned highest average checks.
Or whatever metric you had mentioned. Or maybe most to go, crowlers, whatever it would be.
Oh, that was based on individuals. So we do individual stuff too. I think that it's important that if we're talking team all the time, it works well, but they get tired. And so we've had to toss in some individual things. And like, it could be, we haven't done it in such a long time because the crew's been like very happily motivated, literally like doing couple staff outings a year or quarterly staff outings or staff beer school. So we do team things like that together. But, every once in a while they've been like, let's see who can do the, whatever. If you get a crowler, or you get a little bit more on a gift card or whatever. Yeah.
So would you say that the overall opportunity to make more money seems to be the biggest motivator as a team?
Yeah. Yeah, they're all about that. But they also want to hang out. Like our crew, it's they want to make money, but they want to hang out with each other. And if I'm paying for it, they're all about it.
Bobbi, how about you? How are you motivating your team at Skydance?
So we do individual package sales by hours worked. So it's really down to the individual because initially when I first did that first package sale, I didn't realize or didn't think about the big picture about how somebody could be working 26 hours versus somebody that works 4 hours, so vice versa. So we actually divvy it up by hours worked, so it's a little bit more fair, which is kind of funny because the person that worked the least hours per week actually won in package sales during her shifts.
Nice.
So we do stuff like that. But like Kim said, we do a lot of things in teams as well. So if we're having problems naming a new beer, we'll put it in our Facebook group. Hey, anybody want to help us name the next beer? Here's the style, stuff like that. And they like that stuff too. So just little things like that because they get recognized for it.
So I'm pretty sure Jake had mentioned the Facebook group before, but tell everybody else what you do with your team. I mean, you have literally a Facebook group for your employees.
Yeah, so we have we call it the Skydance team. This is where we put training videos in for like little things for electric to stereo or stuff like that. I also have like company updates in there if something's changing company-wide or something, or if we're looking for a particular remote, we can post in there. But we use it a lot for updating each other and motivating each other at times or saying happy birthdays and stuff like that. It's just another way that we communicate.
No, I like it. Brad, how about you? What are you doing down in Orlando?
So, like Linus was saying, we it's tough to do anything individual with us, especially because we have sort of a hybrid model where we have the QR codes. We have, you can order from the bar, you can order from a handheld from the staff. So there are plenty of checks out there that they've ordered everything through a QR code, and whoever is available runs it. So there really is no way to tell whose sale that was, for instance, which is almost a plus in what we've done. Is it's more of staff ownership of the place. So like I think Bobbi was saying with naming the beers, if we come up with a new pizza, we kind of go around and who wants to name this, or if I'm placing an order for the week, whatever staff members there, like, hey, what do you want to bring in? What do you want to get? and kind of involving them in that, so where they kind of have that sense of ownership and pride in it. And then, we will do like daily sales goals, and it's more for like for us as a total, like, hey, let's hit X dollars today, and this is the goal, and what can we do to do that, and come up with ideas like, oh, let's try to add on more crowlers to go, or try to add on a package sale as they're leaving the door, things like that. So it's been mostly the involvement of all of our staff to just be involved in the business and decision making process, so they kind of feel that ownership of it as well.
No, Brad, you brought up a really great point that I'd love to hear everybody's, what you're doing. You mentioned a lot of your experience for guests is QR code based. Do you have like an ordering counter or their staff engagement, depending on where you sit, or what's that like?
So ours is totally open. We wanted the model of, like, I think Linus mentioned earlier, we didn't want to have fighting over sections or, oh, that's not my table, so I can't help them type conversations. So ours is totally open. We have, kind of the idea of, hey, however the guest wants to interact with us is fine with us. So you can sit down and order from a QR code and never talk to any of us, and we'll just bring stuff to you as you want it. You can come to the bar, you can, try samples, talk to the bartender, get recommendations, or between, we can come out with a handheld and take your order for you as well. So it's really kind of open to whatever the guest wants, but it's totally open.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a topic for a future panel conversation on just these customized guest experiences. There's so many different factors. A 21-year-old is going to want a completely different year-old experience than a boomer. And we got to figure out the best ways to interact with each generation, but find the right way to interact with both. So, right. Kim, like rapid fire quickly, what's your service model look like at Guardian?
I'd say 90% of our time open, we've been table service. And not necessarily traditional table service, like it feels like that in the beginning, but then past that, we'll come and do some table touches, but past that, we leave you alone, and we leave you with a light where if you touch the top of it, it changes colors. And so if you want service, turn it to red. And so that way, if you're having a conversation and hanging out, we're not going to be bugging you. Right. You're not going to be like, you're going out. You're probably talking about pretty personal things. And so, yeah, you can sit at the bar, like Brad was saying, and chat it up and get your tasters and do all that sort of thing. Or you can sit at a table and we'll come to you. So we had to go counter service for a little bit when we had less staff, but we went back to full service. So, but it's just how we do it. It's great.
Thanks for sharing. Bobbi, what's your model?
We do table service as much as possible. So we will bring staff in for larger events just to try to give everybody the same table experience. Mm-hmm. A lot of customers are always caught off guard, like, oh my gosh, you're coming to me. And I'm like, yes, we are. So that works for us the best.
Cool. Yeah, I think it's important once you start doing something, you got to let them know that it's consistently going to be there. Otherwise, they get confused.
Yeah.
Linus, how about you? What's the model?
Yeah, for us, it's table service as well. We tried QR codes, but the adherence was very low and was actually creating some service issues. So we completely disable that and do tableside service, unless we have a big event that we know no matter how much we staff the place, it's going to be a mess. Then we go to bar service. And it's usually when we do like a Brazilian event, because Brazilians are just like terrible staying in one place. So instead of us going to the customers, mostly Brazilians, they come to the bar. But every day is table service, and that's been the expectation, because I think nowadays people don't differentiate when they go to a brewery taproom or a bar. They want the same experience from a bar or restaurant as they go to a brewery taproom. Before brewery taproom, you accept standing in line on a bar, making your order, getting your drink.
Not anymore. Not anymore.
Not anymore. So
let's dive into a question we had dropped in the comments. So, do you all get any pushback from customers for tip pooling? That's a really interesting one. Has anyone received any, pushback from any guests?
No.
I can say when some of our customers found out, which I've always said, my house is my house, and we don't talk about our house, what happens in our house with other people. But somehow a couple of our customers did find out, and so they would specifically try to up the cash game a little bit for a while to try to they was, oh, this is the best bartender ever, or this is this, and they play that game of cash tips that were bigger for that shift or something like that. But that was the only time. Eventually it went away.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Here, I think a couple of times, maybe a handful of times, we had customers that they said, this tip is for you, so that's why I'm handing it off to you. But then the servers would tell them, we pull tips here, so it's going to be for everybody. Thank you very much for appreciating my work, but this is for everybody. So the servers took on them to being the police of that, because they know if they're doing that, they're taking money off they're stealing money off their buddies, off their coworkers. So at least for us, it comes down to them. But no customer actually pushed back. It's just that they're not used to it, but they understand how we see tips as a reward for experience, not for person.
No, thank you for sharing that. So I've got a two-part question. I had planned to ask these separately, but I think it makes sense to throw them both at you at once and see how you respond. So how do you all ensure fairness and transparency in distributing tips among your staff members? And the follow-up is, how does technology make this easier for you?
So that is, at least with us, it is all the technology. So, which payroll partner we went with, and then from the beginning, especially with tip pooling, there's always that option of like, do you want to make this report available to staff? And we said from the beginning, yes, we want to be transparent. We want to let them see what they're earning. So that's exactly it. So the technology, thank goodness, does all the calculations, does all the figuring out what each person gets, and then it also provides those kind of shift recap reports, so they can kind of see what was brought in, what their portion was, things like that.
We do ours with a calculator. No, we don't
Good
have
for you. I did not do that.
I'm like, I would maybe in the future like a program, who knows? But so we figure out how many hours we work for the day, how many people individually work those hours, and that's easy because you can look that up on the POS. And then we put together the cash and the credit card tips, and we report, meaning my partner and I report all the tips. We don't have staff do any of that. That way if we get audited, like we're good. And then they write out a report for the day and figure out what you get per hour. And it's just there. So if somebody, like, people have messed up math and stuff before. And so we check it the next morning. And if it needs to be fixed, it's fixed. It's not a problem. So they can see it as the manager is going through and doing the tips. And then we see it as we're checking it. And then it's written, there's little envelopes. They can see what they're getting. I'm like, they all talk about it. I'm like, it's super open. Then you can see the reports on POS as well.
Yeah, I wish our POS did that automatically for us. But I think there's so much customization that every business would need on that part that kind of makes it impossible. So I use a spreadsheet for that. I input cash and credit card tips, how many hours each person worked each day of the week, and then calculate the proportionate, if you're front, back, prep, line, based on that. I wish the POS would do that automatically, but I mean, I do that once a week. It takes me half an hour once a week to sit down, get all the reports from the whole week, input everything, separate the tips, and then I tip them out once a week as well.
I will say you brought up a good point, because I think by having the POS do everything, like you said, there isn't an unlimited amount of customization. So that actually ultimately stopped me from going down the rabbit hole of, they get this percent and I break up that percent by that percent. And we've had those conversations of whether we should go down that route, and a little bit of ease of not doing it ultimately worked out for us. But I could definitely see that of, that it would be almost possible to do something like that with a lot of the systems out there.
Bobbi, any thoughts to add?
No, pretty much in the same group as Kim.
So this past, almost hour so far, we've talked a lot about, you sprinkled in insight about how tip pooling is maximizing your staff experience, how it's making them operate more as a team and just work together a lot better. What have been some of the benefits you've noticed for your guests? How have they appreciated the model, and what's some feedback that you've received from them?
Quality of service, in the sense that anybody can be your server. And so you should be able to get whatever you need in a pretty quick amount of time. And then they love getting to know everyone. So it's not just like, say that you come every Wednesday night and you're like a mug club member. And so you might only get to see one person that's at your table or those folks, but getting to see everybody else if you come on the weekend or whatever, you might meet 6 new staff members.
Yeah, and to that point too, I mean, we've had it, if it's a slower, lunch shift or after lunch shift, that lull between, someone orders a pizza, we've had our kitchen staff be like, go give it to them, go, take pride in what you just made. So they're not, it kind of gets everybody more exposure to the customers. And then to that point, it stops the, the whole, oh, that's not my table, or, oh, that's not my section. So it's, anyone, I could be back behind the bar, or, a staff member could be back behind the bar pouring a beer, and the table needs something. So whoever sees it goes in and helps them, versus, oh, I'll get to my table when I'm done doing this, or things like that. So the speed of service is also improved quite a bit, because it's whoever's available goes and helps them.
Yeah. You avoid those situations that a customer calls you and say, hey, I would like to order. Oh, I'm going to get your server.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I hate that.
Yeah, we try to create a seamless, consistent effort across the board. So if you, like y'all guys said, if you come in every Wednesday, the experience is the same the first 3 seconds you walk in the door. So.
Mm-hmm.
So let's move on to a different question now. Whether you've been doing tip pooling for 5 years or you've been only doing it a few months, what's something that's changed since you first launched tip pooling in your tap room? I'd love to hear how you've evolved your approach to this and your procedures and processes over time.
We have two little things, and I think that this was more to benefit. One is if we get food in, like a food order online to go, or even just, online to go. So it never touches the front of house, I guess you could say. It just spits out in the printer in the kitchen. Then they get the tip. And so they can split it up however they want. I think they just, whoever made it gets it, or, whatever. Like, it doesn't happen a super often amount of time, but I remember one day we had a really big order, and that's kind of where it started. And then the other one is events. So like we've held some pretty big events, and say that the back of house spent 5 hours preparing food just for that event. We make sure that, a chunk of the tip, I think half, or depending on how many folks were on that day, went to them. And so we didn't usually tip out back of house because they just different rates of pay and things like that. But yeah, so we've included them in it here and there for special events and things.
Awesome. Thanks, Kim. Anyone else have something they've learned?
Ours has definitely been balance, especially because we're new and we were still trying to figure out processes and, just how to run the day to day. That was the biggest rub at first, was the balance, and, that the staff felt that everyone was working at an equal level, right? So just tweaking, who did what and things like that to make sure that they felt that balance. So that way when the tips got pulled out, that, everyone felt that they were earning their fair share, and they were also just as happy that their friends who were working with them were also earning the same amount, because they all kind of felt they were on that same level.
Yeah. So for me, what changed was a little bit the split between front and back of the house, and then later when we had a dedicated prep team for the kitchen to split the back of the house tips between prep and line.
Does anybody have any challenges you're currently facing?
No.
Wow.
I'm close.
Regarding tip pooling, no. I mean,
Yes.
And that has been the theme for today. So let's end. The 4 of you have offered so much unique insight about your experiences. Now, in all these panels, we've said a lot of really neat things. You've shared a lot of great experiences. And I love everyone to have like one actionable takeaway that they can implement at their brewery, whether they're, considering tip pooling, maybe inspired by today, or, or have been doing tip pooling for a while and just want to make it even better for their staff. So your question is, what is one recommendation for other taproom managers and owners to better motivate their team while tip pooling? Is there anything you would like to see someone else, maybe attempt at their taproom or brewery?
Get the buy-in upon hiring if you can.
Mhm.
Okay, no repeats, Kim. That's a great one to start with. It's a buy-in upon hiring.
Yeah, and then I would say the communication and transparency. Like, here's the why, here's the benefit, and making sure that they understand it, and that you're transparent with how it's being divvied out and things like that.
Bobbi and Linus, you got to give one. The longer you wait, the less options they're going to be.
I was going to say the.
You got to think of a new one. That's the fun of the game.
I was.
You all are going to get the same reward for your answers, so don't worry. Everyone's going to be.
Well, I would say recommendation is think about the back of the house as well. So I think that's an important thing. I mean, I agree with set the tone on hiring and transparency and communication, but also think about back of the house. I think they are often overlooked when people talk about tips.
And Linus and Brad.
And to get the buy-in from the front of the house, just tell them you're either doing pooling tips or you're tipping them out. Like at the end of the day, would you rather do that based on tips or sales?
And Linus and Brad, because you both do tip out back of house, a lot of back of house people in other restaurants and positions might not get tipped out. How does it make them feel?
I think they're ecstatic. I think, we've had great feedback from them on, being more involved and feeling, more into the day-to-day operation of the restaurant versus, just being stuck in the back and, hearing about it after the fact.
Yep.
Okay, now Bobbi, you get to take us home. What is your one recommendation?
My one recommendation is to make it a cultural thing. Not just what Kim said, like at the very beginning, but like it's part of who you are. It's part of the experience. And I am totally about transparency. So showing the numbers, showing how it works, everybody jumps in, is on board. So.
Well, awesome. Well, Kim, Bobbi, Linus, and Brad, it's been so great learning from you today. I hope everybody tuning in the future has found that one takeaway you can take back to your tap room, whether it's maybe pursue tip pooling a little bit more. Maybe it's not for you, but I hope you learned something. And everybody, hope to share a pint soon. See you soon. Cheers.
See ya.
Cheers.